Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, the line in the sand. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So what is this line in the sand we talk about? Well, again, it's our bull market support band, okay? And it consists, again, of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. And currently, it ranges from $43,562 up to $48,432. Okay, so it's a pretty wide range. And when we look at this, why is this the level that we want to get above before we can resume any type of bullishness? Now, I should be clear. Not only do we need to get above it, we also need to get above it and then come back down and hold it as support. There have been times in the past where we get above it, but then we come back down and don't hold it as support. And then you can see we sort of just kick the can down the road for a while. Here's a great example of us getting above it and coming back down and holding it as support. You can see last cycle, it was key. We came here, we went above it, we did not hold it as support. Here we went above it, held it as support, continue the journey. So the line in the sand now is starting to turn over. Okay, it's starting to turn over. And you can see that as we continue to move out here, this will likely start to turn over depending on what the weekly closes of Bitcoin are. If we were to go back 20 weeks from the current levels, you can see we're essentially replacing the current prices with essentially a price around the same. But as we continue to move out for a few weeks, if we're unable to move back up, to some of these levels up here, then the 20-week will certainly start coming back down fairly quickly because now we have some of these weekly candles down here. So when we look at this, we say, well, this is the line in the sand, and we do need to get back above it at some point for us to resume being somewhat bullish on Bitcoin. To get overly bullish, we want to hold it as support, okay? And if you go back and look at 2019, when we fell below it, we actually had a few weeks of sort of just chilling at these levels. So we had a 20% drop, and then we more or less went sideways for 3 weeks. Here, from that level, we had about a 25% drop. We just went sideways more or less for 1 week. We currently are in our second week. If it were to emulate 2019, then maybe within a month or so, we go back up and we at least test these levels. But again, there's not going to be anything that happens the exact same way. But something we do know, again, is that this level will be a key resistance level for us to break, okay? Now, there's all these other things, right? There's like the 20-day SMA. There's certainly other levels we can look at, okay? But at the end of the day, the bull market support band, I think, is the most important. So if you just quickly look at the different moving averages, we have the 20-day SMA, which, by the way, just crossed below the 200-day SMA. Just something to note. The 20-day right now is at 41,670. Okay. That, the 20 days is one of those things where in a bull market, it's nice if you hold it as support because you can get a nice bounce, but breaking it to the downside doesn't necessarily mean capitulation. But when we're moving down, we can get rejected by it. So if we do get a move up, that would be a key area to look out for. Now, the other moving averages are much higher. We're a long ways off from those. We did get handily rejected by the 200-day SMA. Now, I'm just, I made a video, we've made some videos talking about Bitcoin being somewhat bearish. And, whether you want to call it being bearish or you want to call it a consolidation phase, it's somewhat nitpicking vocabulary. My general impression, as I said, is that this will likely not be a V-shaped recovery. So I do not see this happening. I could see a relief rally coming, but I don't think it would necessarily immediately take us to all-time highs. I think we're going to have more or less a longer consolidation phase that could last about 3 to 6 months, is my guess. But we'll continue to look at that as we continue to navigate this cycle. But I would not necessarily, expect that Bitcoin is going to immediately put in new all-time highs. I certainly wouldn't expect that. Now, you might be wondering about this cross here, and does it signify anything important? Well, it's hard to really say. I mean, you don't, and we can go back in time and look. The first cross, I will tell you, it seems kind of scary, but there's some other ones that weren't so bad. If you look at the last time, the 20-day cross below the 200-day, it was right here. It was at the March capitulation drop. Now that doesn't mean that has to happen again. I mean, it could just be a coincidence. Again, the 20, it's just a lagging indicator of what the price is already doing. You can see there have been other times where it crossed and it didn't do anything. Okay, so I don't necessarily think that the 20-day crossing the 200-day is that important. Sometimes it can signify, maybe a drop is coming, but other times it didn't really signify anything, much of anything. So I don't think that's something necessarily you can take to the bank. But I do want to point out that we are getting that cross right there. Obviously, the more interesting cross would be the 50-day moving average, which is still relatively high up. The 50-day right now is over 50K. The 200-day is at 41K. So they're still a ways apart. So nothing really to update there. I think some people, get scared when they think about Bitcoin, being somewhat bearish for a while. But I will say again that, consolidation phases, whatever you want to call them, they do represent opportunities. They do represent opportunities, and I don't know how low it's going to go. I mean, we've looked at a lot of the different moving averages, and we speculated, what would be like the worst case scenario, what would be the best case scenario. I mean, best case scenario, right, is 30K is our bottom, and we just sort of slowly move back up. I mean, maybe you would say best case scenario would be a quick move up. I would contend that a slower move up would be a lot healthier than a quick move up. I feel like a quick move up would probably be seen as a bull trap, but a more slower move up would actually be a lot better. So, I mean, the most bearish case is always the 200-week moving average, which right now is around 13K. I don't see us going to 13K by any means, but we could always go back to the 200-week moving average, later this year if things don't, immediately pick back up. That would be the worst case scenario. Okay, so the probability of that happening is probably not that high. I will grant you that. Regardless, these phases in a market cycle, I do think represent opportunity. I don't think that these phases should be seen as something to be scared of. I mean, even in 2019, there were some people that they were afraid they were missing the boat here. This just represented an opportunity. As we said back then, right? It just represented an opportunity for gearing up for this phase. So whatever this consolidation phase, if we want to call it that, turns out to be, whatever it turns out to be, I think it just represents an opportunity, and we'll just take it 1 week at a time. So again, the line in the sand is our bull market support band, and right now we are nowhere close to it. Just to get to the 21-week EMA, Bitcoin would need to rally about 26%. To get to the 20-week SMA, we need to go up about 40%. So, high probability that does not immediately happen. High probability that does not immediately happen. And we spend some time consolidating. I do think at some point we will get a relief rally back to the bull market support band, and that'll be decision time. Okay, it's going to be a crucial time in the market. That will be decision time. Do we get immediately back above it, test it as support, and continue our journey, which would be on par with the 4-year cycle theory? Or do we spend a lot longer consolidating, and then gear up for another leg of our journey later on, taking us well into 2022? Obviously, you guys know my thoughts on that. I don't need to reiterate those in every video, but we're going to keep an eye on all possibilities. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the premium list sale. You can find a link to that in the description below. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely subscribe. Let's go for 450,000 subscribers. Click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye.